Hi, and welcome to this episode of Rare Book Chat. I'm Jeremy O'Connor, and I'm here with my co-host,
Michael DiRuggiero. In this week's episode, we debate the price of the Constitution that sold last week. Jeremy, for some reason, seems disconcerted about the $11 million result, and this gives us a chance to speculate about auction results in general. Are auction prices just subject to randomness? Are books and documents actually undervalued? We don't know the answers, but we do know our thoughts. Here's the show.
I want to talk about the price of the Constitution.
Let's talk about the price of the Constitution.
The Brunk auction result. How do you feel? And the view in the New York Times article, it was a fantastic price.
Yeah, and actually I read more than just the New York Times article. It was covered pretty widely. And the story, the headline is, hey, Constitution brings $11 million, that's the eye-catching number and it's eye-catching subject. It makes for good copy.
Yeah.
But my feeling, what are your feelings?
I think
in general.
it's interesting. Yeah. It's Monday. I don't know. Sunny, nice weather. I love the foliage.
Yeah. I don't want to hear about the weather. Yeah.
I'm happy.
No one wants to hear about the weather.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was cheap. I'm going to say that. I think it was a cheap price. I think whoever bought that did extremely well and should be very, very happy.
I definitely think it's cheap because expectations, at least in our small world, I think were higher. So if you look at it from the outside, it's a big number.
Yeah.
And we do know that the $43 million comp, if it is a comp, because it's not the same item, we have to be clear about that. Of the Constitution, the one that we were discussing went from Philadelphia to New York. The Ken Griffin Constitution, which sold a few years ago, was, I was about to say clouded in strange circumstances, but that sounds a little
Wait, what was clouded?
Too negative, but had the price. What drove the price up? So the price was driven up by crowdfunding. I
don't know. I mean, Ken Griffin's a smart guy. He's a hedge fund genius, right? So I mean, if he's paying $43 million,
but who is his competition?
I mean, okay, but that's always a question. Any auction, a big price, you always think like, okay, two crazy people, two not crazy people. It's really hard to make sense of it. Were those 17,000 Dow participants? Were they crazy? Was that I don't know.
I guess it was not that much risk for each of them because they were. I think the average share was several $100s. So
yeah, but I mean, let's come back to the Ken Griffin result. So let's talk about yeah.
So it is a big price, and I guess it's a big price when you look at it in the context of what has sold historically at auction, which I actually just did because I was trying to see how this ranked. Because I remember years ago there was a copy, it was George Washington's copy of the laws of the United States. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
But George Washington's personal copy of the Acts of Congress.
I remember this, yeah.
The Acts of the First Congress.
$10 million.
Went for $9.8 million. Yeah, $10 million essentially. And that was big news at the time.
The estimate, what was the estimate? Yeah, I remember.
But since then, there have been other things that have gone higher, but not that many. I guess that was my point. So I was looking at the most expensive things sold at auction, and they're mostly manuscripts. So when you're talking about printed documents, we're really looking at rarefied air at the 10 million mark. So if we take out the $43 million comp, just look at it with fresh eyes.
Okay.
This Brunk result is pretty good. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I was very interested in the fact that the last time that a copy of the ratification copy of the Constitution appeared at auction was 1891, and that in that year it made more than a copy of the first printing of the Declaration of Independence. I think that's really interesting and powerful and significant. If a copy of the Declaration of Independence came up right now and sold for $11 million, I think people would be flabbergasted at an incredibly low number. Do you agree with that?
Do agree with that.
I mean, the last time a Declaration first printing appeared at auction was 2000, and it sold for a little over $8 million. That was the Norman Lear copy.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And, at $8 million, that was a big price then. Like if a copy of the Declaration of Independence came up right now and sold for $11 million, I would be astonished. I mean, I'd be amazed at an incredibly low number.
Would you be appalled?
I would be disheartened.
Okay.
Would I be verklempt?
I'm not sure. Befuddled?
What would you be?
Mystified.
Mystified. Oh, perturbed? Would you be perturbed?
No, I wouldn't be perturbed. I'd just be mystified.
Okay.
Anyway, get back to your point.
What about stupefied? I would be stupefied. I'm going to settle on stupid. I would be stupefied if a copy of the Declaration of Independence came up right now and sold for $11 million.
Okay.
Oh, and so let's actually say, like, if a copy came up right now, what do you think it would make? Would it make 43 million over under the Declaration versus the
Under.
over?
I think the $43 million is I don't know. I think as time goes on, we may be looking at that as a really unusual result.
I don't think we should.
Can I just say overall a couple things?
Yeah.
It may or may not be relevant.
Yeah.
No, they're going to be relevant. That what we're doing here is a little bit non-scientific, maybe, because these are limited data points. I guess why it's so hard for us to place this $11 million result is because it hasn't come on auction since, and we'll say it again, 1891.
Yeah.
Which is that meant a lot to me. So when I was thinking
Huge.
about this and thought it would go for more, was because I was looking at it as almost a unique opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a unique opportunity, and that puts it more in the realm of expensive manuscripts or even works of art.
I don't even know if that 1891 example was signed by Charles Thomson. I'm going to guess it wasn't.
I think it was.
Let's say it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're saying that in 1891, book collectors, the book market, or some two bidders, right, viewed this printing of the Constitution as more desirable, or at least a peer of the Declaration of Independence. And they weren't, benighted. They knew.
Bemused.
Bemused, like or befuddled.
Beclowned.
Right, be clowns, right. I mean, so in 1891, it was this printing of the Constitution over the Declaration of Independence. And so now...
That means a lot too, doesn't it?
It does mean a lot to me. Now, I think had this come up for auction more frequently in the intervening decades, I think it would have developed a price history. If this printing of the Constitution was more common, was more, like a declaration where there's, say, 10 or so sale records in the intervening decades, I think it would have had a chance to develop a price history that would give bidders and the market a better picture of its importance and its value, etc. I think the absence of a price history, I think, worked against it here.
So you're making the crazy hypothesis that it suffered by being too rare.
I think, yes. I think that's
crazy.
I don't think it's crazy.
You're crazy.
I don't think I'm crazy. But I mean, so in the intervening decades, the Declaration established, steady gains, incredible gains. But this has been off anybody's radar, and so I think that could be a factor. This is all speculation, obviously. But I think 11 million is low.
I do think it's low too. That was below what we were both guessing.
Yeah.
But hey, either way, it's not our money.
No, that's
not my money. Was it your money? It's an anonymous bidder. You're not answering the question. Not answering the question.
Maybe. Yeah. I can't disclose. But I also want to talk about the Ken Griffin result at 43 million. I mean, I actually, that is not that anomalous in the book market.
It's very anomalous in the book market. No. It's the record for a printed document at auction.
Yeah. Okay. But that it is. Okay.
Small detail.
Okay. But listen to this. The last time that the Ken Griffin Constitution sold at auction in 1988, it was $165,000.
Yes.
So if you look at what kind of annualized rate of return, is it to go from 165 in 1988 to 43 million? No, but if you look at the price increase from $165,000 in 1988 to $43 million in 2021, that's about an 18% annualized rate of return.
Okay.
So I mean that's pretty healthy, but from 1975,
that's very healthy.
It's very healthy, right? But we're talking about an extraordinarily rare, valuable, desirable item. So a copy of the Declaration of Independence sold at auction in 1975 for $92,000. And then, I mentioned the Norman Lear copy that sold for a little over $8 million in 2000. So in that span, from 1975 to 2000, to go from $92,000 to $8 million is just about exactly the same as the same annualized rate of return, 18-19%, something like that.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's 19%. The Einstein-Beso manuscript, right? When that sold in 2002 for $560,000.
You're talking about correspondence between Albert Einstein and his best friend Michele Beso, working out details of general relativity.
Right. 54-page manuscript. Half of the manuscript is in Einstein's hand, half in Beso's. Right.
Right, which makes it really cool. You get a back and forth and a whole feel for what's
Incredible.
happening.
Wonderful. Right. But
Yeah,
to go from
amazing.
$560,000 in $560,000 in 2002 to $13 million in 2021, again, we're talking about 18-19% rate of return annualized.
And actually, the weird thing about that first auction record, the 500,000 plus, is that was kind of bolstered by a bit of a scam, as you remember. So it's probably even gone higher.
Remind us.
So this conglomerate, Aristophil, pooled together investor money. They bought things and then immediately sold them at inflated prices, shares of them. So they were buying up everything at the time, every major autograph item
Right.
at auction. So they were going to outbid anybody. So that could have
Right.
raised it a bit.
My point is that if you look at the gains in the Griffin Constitution, from $165,000 in 1988 to $43 million in 2021, if you look at it in absolute terms, obviously that's an extraordinary increase. But if you look at it in terms of annualized rate of return, it's still extraordinary, but it is not singular. That's kind of the way I want to say it. That 18%, 19%, whatever it is, we've seen that before, and we saw that in the gains of the Declaration of Independence from 1975 to 2000, where the annualized rate of return is around 19%, and we see it with the Einstein-Beso manuscript. Same thing. And there's a Jefferson letter out there relating to Lewis and Clark, has the same kind of numbers. And there's others, there are other examples of this. So, to be at the 18, 19, 20% annualized rate of return, level is really exceptional, but it's not unheard of. That's my point. Rate of return annualized of under 20% for truly exceptional material is not unheard of in our market, even over decades. So my point is, when you look at the Ken Griffin $43 million result, yes, it's a high number, but it was basically three times the estimate, and it was no more of a leap in price. This is the way I want to say it. That $43 million result in a couple of years ago was no more of a leap in price over the $165,000 number from 1988 than the Norman Lear copy of the Declaration at $8 million in 2000 was a leap, was a gargantuan leap over the $92,000 price for the Declaration in 1975. That's kind of the way I want to say it. And I would also add that, so 92,000 1975 for the Declaration, the first printing, to 8 million in 2000 over 25 years, we're looking at like 18-19% annualized. And then I think we can look at the $8 million number in 2000 and in terms of today's market and say there's no way a Declaration is going to sell for 8 million or 11 million. Like those numbers are so, which is to say we look forward into the future. You can imagine a point some decades from now where somebody would look at the $43 million number for the Constitution, the Griffin paid, and say, well, there's no way you're buying a Constitution for $43 million in 2035 or 2045.
So what do you think the person who bought this made a good investment?
Absolutely. I think it was fantastic.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Although I have to say, I'm a little uncomfortable because I feel like you're taking very selected data points here. And we have to be very clear. It's risky buying rare books as investments. really
Sure.
clear about
No,
that.
no, and I'm not talking about them, like, as investments, and of course, there are very few data points to compare to, and I'm not talking about, like, you would go out and, like, you develop an investment strategy here because they're not it's like these are
Yeah, you're talking about very specific high-end objects.
very specific high-end objects, but if you talk about Einstein's theory of relativity manuscript, and you talk about the first printing of the U.S. Constitution, you talk about the first printing of the Declaration of Independence, and like as you look for peers for those kinds of things, there's not a whole lot of things out there. So yeah, I mean,
That's a good point.
there's not a lot of things you can toss out and say, well, that's as good as the first printing of the Constitution, or that's as good as the you know Einstein relativity manuscript. There's just very few things that you can come up with that are going to be that good.
I'm just uncomfortable talking about books in investment terms, although I have to do it a lot. Just because I don't know, you don't want to get blamed for things going down.
No, but I mean, it's also just you don't want to ignore the fact that there are prices attached to these things, and you can talk about, is A worth more than B, or is A more desirable than B? And I mean, so I don't think we need to.
No, and we do think about it and talk about it all the time, and it's fascinating what things do go down.
Right. The other, I want to mention another factor that I think could have helped keep this price under control from going much higher, getting near the, even closer to the more recent private sale result of the first printing of the Constitution, with which Seth speculated might be like in the high teens, like 18 million or something like that. The Brunk auction had no estimate. It had a starting bid at $1 million, no reserve. But, for a collector, that's an anchoring heuristic where they see $1 million and now somebody goes and pays 11. So now you've gone, 10, 11x over
Yeah.
so if to me, I think that is a threshold where, like, 10x the estimate or 10x the anchoring heuristic is a pretty significant result, right?
Yeah, it would be interesting to know their reasons for that, for putting it at that price. Because I agree with you. It's odd. Yeah.
It was just low, and so then you have to be like a very confident bidder to say, okay, I'll go 30x. But
Right.
the Einstein Baso manuscript, again, was the estimate, I think, on that was 2 to 3 million, and it made 13 million, which was not, that's not 10x, right?
Right.
And the Griffin result at 43 million, I think the estimate was 15 to 20. That's not the 3x.
So you are arguing, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the auction house, when they put an estimate on it, that's their professional opinion in some way. So as a bidder, you are saying, if I'm going 10 times a professional
Yeah,
opinion, that takes a little bit of guts.
it takes guts. Now you're into 20 million or into 30 million, and now you're like really on a limb.
Yeah, there is something to that.
I mean, there's a
But they must have had their reasons. It would be interesting to know.
yeah, there was a couple years ago, we were bidding on something at our auction. It was there was that Steve Jobs signed Apple II manual.
Yeah, you can reveal some trade secrets.
Oh yeah, so there was that Apple II manual that came up at our auction a couple of years ago, and it was signed by Steve Jobs and Mike Markkula, the third co-founder of Apple. Right.
Yeah, I like that.
And Jobs, there was a great inscription on it. It said something like "Go change the world."
Mhm.
So, but this is like a manual for an Apple II computer,
Oh, it didn't look that great, except the inscription.
and it ended up selling to Jim Irsay,
Yeah.
the owner of the Colts. And he put out a cool quote afterwards about how inspiring Steve Jobs is and all that stuff. But anyway, so that estimate, I forget what the estimate was. It was like 20 to 30, maybe.
I was 20 to 30 was in my head too. That's
Right.
close enough.
And we were bidding. I mean, I think we were going to bid to 50.
Right. Oh, it takes some guts to bid twice the estimate.
Right. We were going to bid $50,000 and, like, hope to get it. And it sold for $778,000 or something, some 775, some crazy number, right?
I know.
Okay, so that is a huge, stupendous number, and that's like, it was like basically, what is that, 20 something x the estimate, right? So that's how far out on a limb you have to go to get from $1 million starting bid at Brunk to 25 million, let's say,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the first the ratification Constitution. So, like, to go from, at RR, you have 20 to 30 estimate, and so it ends up at 778, and it's like their press releases and it's a crazy price and whatever. And that to me is truly a crazy price, right?
I thought it was too. Still do. Yeah.
Right. But
because there have been better things that have come on the market, better Steve Jobs things that go for way less. Back to my point, though. Auctions are unpredictable. Auctions are unpredictable. That's my takeaway. I'm in a comfortable place when I say that. It's a very safe thing to say. Auctions, unpredictable.
Yeah, you just keep saying it.
I will.
But that's what makes them interesting. But like my point, I guess, is that I think if the estimate had been, say, 3 to 5 million, I think I could imagine bidders being more comfortable going up, say, towards 20. Whereas starting bid at $1 million, once you're at 20 million, you're really out there.
You know what we need to do?
What?
We need to get that owner, have that owner auction it with a higher estimate right now. We need some data. You're just theorizing. We need data.
Well, I want to get the guy on the show and say, or woman, and I'm going to get that bidder on this show and say, how high were you going to go? Because somebody could have been ready to bid to $35 million or something like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
We don't know that person's max.
Now, here's the other reason I like that estimate, that starting bid of $1 million, I think is disorienting and perplexing here.
Yes. What is your reason? I like disorienting.
Because earlier this year, Sotheby's sold a July 1776 printing of the Declaration of Independence. Not the first printing, but one of the very scarce, important July 1776 printings of the broadside. It wasn't a broadside, actually. It was a different format. But,
you're confusing me already.
Okay. Anyway, they sold it and the estimate was like 3 to 5 million, and it made 3.5 million or something like that. And I think it was a little bit of maybe potentially a disappointing result, even based on the estimate.
Yes, definitely. Right? Yes. Yep.
So we could do a whole show. We could do a whole conversation about July 1776 printings of the Declaration of Independence. I think they're fabulous. I think they're undervalued. I think if you're looking to spend a few $1 million on Americana, go find one, because I think I have done all sorts of research and I believe that they're really exciting, wonderful, and obtainable, and likely to do well over time. But how can it be that a July 1776 printing, not the first printing, a July 1776 printing, I think it was printed July 14th, this is just from off the top of my head, but it's like 10 days after, and how can that be have an estimate of 3 to 5 million, and this has a starting bid at $1 million? Like that would confuse me if I was maybe a lusty buyer, a lusty collector, but not too experienced. Yeah, I said lusty. You heard
collector.
that.
You did. Yeah. I know. It surprised me. Well, it didn't surprise me really. So, but the real bidders know it was a joke. They know what they're going to bid. So
I don't know. Do they?
I don't know. I don't know if I buy your theory. I did 5 minutes ago, but now I don't know if I do. They're getting advice from professionals. They're told what they're
told what to do.
No, but if I guess it comes down to, okay, if you really, really want it or need it for your collection, for whatever project you're doing in terms of preserving American history, this was your one chance to get it. So were there two people who really wanted it, it could have gone stratospheric. Right. Instead, there were two people who wanted it. Look at me. I'm saying $10 million is not really wanting it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but when we're talking about these things, and can we just take something? This is a moment to get a little high horse.
Mm-hmm. Go get on.
Get on high horse. Okay.
Get on high horse. Yeah.
This is a moment where I have to say, and again, this is not our money. Never will be our money. That these things are so cheap compared to art. I just read an article where a dealer was saying that, and it just boggles my mind.
Absolutely. And now here's the other thing I want to say about 18% annualized or whatever that number is.
But we book dealers always say that because we have a bias. But I can't.
I know.
I actually have trouble understanding, except the answer is that's what the market says.
Right. 18% annualized. Okay. So if you're talking about the S&P 500 over 30 or 35, whatever number of decades, you're not going to see 18%, right? But I think it's typically around 9% or over a long period of time, 10%, something like that. The S&P. Just don't quote me on that. But if you're talking about top executives, the wealthiest of the wealthiest people in the world, to go to 18% annualized, if you look at executive pay, compensation, all that stuff, over 35, 40 years, 18% annualized, yeah, that's bullseye.
So you're saying what somebody in this buying category could have afforded is the same, is 18%. Yes. That makes total sense. Okay, that does work.
I mean, I'm not saying that in any like super scientific way, like to the percentage point, but in broad terms, I think that makes sense. That the
I like broad terms.
Yeah, broad terms are good.
So let me just sum up what I was thinking about. I still think that the high-end rare book manuscript market is still immature in the sense that it has a lot of room to grow.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, but I want to come back to those 1776 July printings of the Declaration of Independence. I mean, they're not.
Jewish were alive in 1776 July.
Yeah, they're not. They're not common, right? But you see one every couple of years. Heritage had one a year or so ago, 2.8 million. Before that, it was the Reese copy sold for $2 million or something like that. So like, they're not like stupendously scarce, right? So like at $3.5 million, the Sotheby's July printing of the Declaration of Independence is a third of the price of this exceptionally scarce signed copy of the Constitution, a ratification copy of the Constitution, signed that signature by Charles Thompson is what propelled that document onto the states. That it's signified, right?
You don't have to convince me.
Right. So why is
I
it
love
$1 million?
it. I think it's unbelievable.
All right. So would you rather have at $11 million the
Yes.
signed Constitution or 5 July 1776 printings of the Declaration of Independence?
Constitution.
Right. How about the Book of Mormon?
Whoa. Because I'm pro-marriage rather than pro-divorce, as you put it the other day.
Oh, very. That's warm. That's very warm. I like that.
Tenderness in me.
Oh, Michael, that's very sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
were you harping on the Declaration of Independence so much? I don't know if I could say the same thing about you.
Yeah, well, who cares? But anyway, so I want to talk about what about that July, not the July. What about the Book of Mormon that sold for $35 million? Right, that was just like the printer's copy. How can that be worth $35 million and the Constitution is worth 11? This printing of the Constitution, of which there's like 10 known with Charles Thompson's signature, how can that be $11 million and that Book of Mormon thing is $35 million? Tell me what are the details on the Book of Mormon?
Because the Book of Mormon, the Mormon Church bought it. And they were going to pay whatever it takes.
So you're telling me we need like a Church of the Constitution?
We need a Church of the Constitution.
But you can't have a Church of the Constitution.
Well, you need the U.S. government.
Yeah.
You need the U.S. government to bid on it. No, you never know when there's going to be a bidder that has to have it. That happens sometimes.
I know. I just think put it this way: $11 million is a lot of money for a document. But in the context,
be very clear about that,
right? But in
a lot of money for anything.
Yeah,
it's just a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So, but I don't think it makes sense to say that was a stupendous, fabulous result. I was a little disappointed. I wanted 25, of somebody else's money to go.
Why were you disappointed though? You had nothing invested in this.
Because I
you had emotions invested in it, maybe.
I mean, it's just these things are exciting, and I think if a Declaration of Independence turns up first printing next week, how much does it sell for?
Wait, can we? No, I'm really interested in this.
$50 million.
Okay,
is my number.
Would that make you happy?
Well, it would, yes, because I've done a lot of analysis of this stuff, and I would be like, yeah, that's bullseye. That's exactly what it should be.
I'm obsessed with the divorce. So
no, I just like numbers. I like stats. Oh, we're gonna have to talk about baseball, by the way, because I love stats.
We will talk about baseball,
and it's October, and it's World Series, and Giancarlo Stanton is hitting home runs. Okay, go ahead. Anyway.
He got 4 hits in the LCS, and they were all home runs.
I know. God. Anyway, let's go back to what you're going to say.
Not surprising. So, I'm so off track now. I'm not off track. My mind is off track. What I wanted to say was, if I can speak for you, and I don't like doing that, so I'll speak for me.
I'm going to give you permission to speak for me.
Okay. What makes you happy about a big price is perhaps it undergirds the whole business and is giving these documents the respect we think they deserve vis-a-vis other collectibles.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You know why?
That's how I'm thinking.
Yeah. No. Because this is why.
And I love art. I'm not making fun of art.
I hear you. Why do big prices matter? I mean, they don't. But if you put the Declaration of Independence on display in the Library of Congress, right? Or you put it on display at a bus stop, right? It's like the grandeur of, the grandeur matters, right? And so all these things affect our perceptions. I'm like, I don't want to look at the Declaration of Independence at a bus stop. I don't.
I thought you were going in a different direction. So I was in Washington, D.C. last December, and I went to the National Archives, and there are all the great documents there
Yeah.
in this room, very dim light.
Yeah.
And there's a long line waiting to get in
Yeah.
because people want to see these, and people ooh and
Yeah.
ah, and there's a hush, and there's a quiet, and there's an awe. So
Right.
it still has that power. It has tremendous power. It has the same thing as aesthetic power.
Yeah. Right. Well, at some point in time, we need to talk about Veblen's theory of the leisure class, because
Yeah,
that
that
is
time's not now.
No, I know. But listen, let's say if the Constitution had sold for like $1 million, or let's say that a copy of the Declaration of Independence sold for a few $1 million, like instead of 20 or 30, like, oh, $2 million for a first printing of the Declaration of Independence. Like, how would you feel? I'd feel terrible.
Depressed. Yeah. A little icky, like weird.
Yeah. It's like the sky is falling.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Like the space-time continuum has been violated.
So it's great that this is being touted in the media, et cetera, as a big result, a great result. I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah. But I just don't think it's quite accurate. I think with more context, I think that starts to like look a little bit weird.
Yeah, but that's not the story I want people to know.
That's okay. Fine.
I want people to celebrate it.
That's good.
In fact, we should be celebrating this price.
Yeah. All right. That's fair.
All right.
Hey, let's reconvene and discuss baseball at some point in time.
I will discuss baseball anytime, any place.
All right.